So, hi everybody and welcome back to the C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 162, and in this video I wanted to continue with classes, but there is a problem and we have to solve this problem first before we can continue with the classes. And this problem is actually a practical problem. It is not a theoretical problem. And what does this mean? I will show you in a moment. So let's go back to the last video where I showed you a simulation and how to use classes in a very basic way, because we have only talked about very basic classes, but we still could use them, created them, and yeah, we can use them. That's very nice. Sorry. And what is the problem then? Or can we see the problem here? No. In this case, we can't see the problem here with these classes because I made very small classes, but I said that a class can be very big. For example, a class can have 500 entries. That means not you need all the 500 entries. Like in my example, in my last video, I used this lamp here, but I needed only this one variable here and two more functions, and all these other variables and constructors I skipped. And the same goes with classes with 500 entries. Probably you need only 10 or even less functions and variables, and all the other kinds probably you skip. But the problem is the class can have 500 entries, which means let's simulate this 500 entries in my lamp class. What does this mean? I need now anyhow more variables, but I make not them right. Let's simulate them and make dummy variables. And dummy variables means, let me copy this one here 500 times in it. No, not that much, but let's copy them a little bit more in it, just for demonstration purposes. I will kick them out anyway. This is just to see what the problem is. Then it makes really sense. And let's copy this one here too. Let's put some functions here. And again, I don't care now if the functions are in the right place. It is just to put in many things. And now what I do is I copy this whole thing and simulate 500 entries more or less. Of course, this will not compile and so, because all time the same thing. But that's not the point here. The point is, let me finish this off a little bit. I think that's okay. And one more variables here, perhaps. Oops, Control Z. Control, copy this one as well. Okay, here. So now I have a big class, right? That's much bigger. And let's ignore here the errors and so, because that's not very important here now. Important is now I have a very big class, and you can see I start to scroll down. Here the class starts where, no, this class is very small. This is the switch class, but now this lamp class has many entries, and I start to scroll down. Where is the function what I need? Where is the variable what I need? And you see, just scrolling down can take here a very long time, and depends on the entries here. Let's copy this one more time. You will see that, copy this one, that you will waste a lot of time just to scroll down and find here variables. You can see here my class now. Okay, here is some functions, and where is the other? Here is something, and yes, here is also something. And you see I waste just time by scrolling down or up and trying to find here a function. So what is the problem here? Like I said, in theory, this is not a problem. Why is this in theory not a problem? As long as the syntax is right, the compiler will not complain. The compiler said, I don't care. As long as you write the right syntax, you can scroll down as long as you want. It is right, and this program will work. And that's why I called it a practical problem, not a theoretical problem, because for the programmer, let's say for us, it is a problem. We cannot work very nice with, okay, I go down here and think about this. This is just one class, and probably we will work not with one class or two classes. Perhaps we work later with 20 classes, and let's say 20 classes have the similar size of this one here. Think about this. Then I'm scrolling just for one class this long. For 20 classes, I'm only wasting for 1 hour for scrolling down and up, right? And that's why it's called a practical problem, and we have to avoid this anyhow. I hope you can see this. And what is the solution? What is the solution for that? And there are a very practical solution, but like I said, in this video we will make just an introduction about this one. We will not, let's say, talk about the solution real. And the introduction is we will create separately files for these classes. And then we will include this file separately here in our working file. What I mean with that, so let's say I have here a class lamp has 500 entries. Let's say this switch variable has later also 500 entries. And now I create for all class a separate file. We will talk about this kind of stuff more in detail. In this video, I want to just point it out because it emphasized the problem, and it shows that we can't work so on in future when we deal with classes with big files. Of course, this would work also on functions. If you have millions of functions, definitions and declarations, that would also work with function if you create separate files for that. And this creating separate files, you probably already know it. It is here on top we have a CPP file, but normally we will have now two different kind of files here, which is called a CPP file and a header file. We will not talk about this kind of stuff later. We will talk about when we are finished with classes. We dive then really in CPP file and header file in. But like I said, we need this kind of stuff because it's no more possible when we have big classes here. So I'm just wasting just for one class. I scroll here, let's say 10 seconds here up and down, right? Or something like that. If I have 20 classes, then the 200 seconds for just scrolling up and down. That would be stupid, right? That's why I say it's a practical problem, because the compiler say, I don't care, you can scroll as long as all things are right, and I'm fast anyway. The compiler is fast. He don't care about how many files here are. Compiler is very fast. So, and yeah, how we make these files. And I show you this one too, but we will not use it. Like I said, when we will dive into this in the next section, when we go really in header files and CPP files. But let me show you what we will do. Normally we will go here to our project on the right side here. If you are using Visual Studio, in other IDEs is of course a little bit different, but here in Visual Studio you go here to your project file. In my case it's called here this first project GT, and then I right click on it. And then I have again here many options, and one of these options says add. You can add files, or you cannot add only files, you can add different kind of things here. And here is one special made for classes, so you can directly add classes. In our case, we can add now this class here and then create the class switch, for example, or class whatever we want. But important is we have also this option here on top, new item. let's click first on a new item, and the new item has also here some option, for example, Visual C++, and here on top, this Visual C++ has here 4, let's say, very basic things which we will probably need. We can skip this one here. This is a module which we will not talk. Here, this here is a very short version. You can directly click C++ class, which will create a header file and a CPP file. And what is a header file? Here you can see it will create this one here and this one here in one place. So the question is, okay, when we have, let me click this one here, just for demonstration purposes, add, and then you can here name your class. For example, I want not this switch here. The switch is very small. Let's make the lamp class, right? Let's call this lamp here because lamp is very big. I call it lamp, and you can see here this header file is called later lamp h, and a CPP file, hey, lamp CPP, and they have the same name because they are connected later. So you want to know that this one is related to this one. And then I can make here, okay, but I'm not doing this because right now in this section, we will not create a separate file, but because I want to talk about this topic in future. There is much talk about separating files and so on. That's why, just that you know it, this will be the solution. Come on, let's add it so you can see it. So now I added this lamp page file, and it is empty, of course, at start. And here you see only the h file. When I go right here in the source file, and here it is added this lamp CPP. I double click on it. Now I have lamp page and lamp CPP, lamp page and lamp CPP. So this header file and what this is and the CPP file in detail, we will talk later. You should only know this class here, what we have lamp here. Now you can put all the things here. Here in the h file, you put the declarations of this class, and in the CPP file you will put all the definitions and how this all kind of stuff works when we dive into this into this file system. There is one more thing I want to talk about this file system. Let's get rid of them because right now I don't want to use them. I wanted to show you this is just one solution, but let's go here back again fast. We go here to this first process in my project folder. I right click it again, and I said you can go to this add, but here was this class that was what I demonstrated you. When I click it, you can see you can name it and then it creates. That's very nice and fun. But what was the other option here again? Let's see this one fast. Add this new item again. But this time I said this is the shortcut here because you create your class CPP and H file. But why they have it separately here if this one is anyway all time created? And the reason for that is it is not all time created. And the next thing is it says here C++ class. So which with other words, they assume you are creating a C++ header file class and a header file CPP. But a header file here, the CPP files and this header file H must be not a class, and that's very important also to note, and that's why we are not talking about this header files and header classes right now, because you can just create function in this header files and CPP files as well, or other declarations and definitions which has nothing to do with a class. All right, but that's we will talk when we come to the separating of files. But important is, in general, let's say so, in general, you will use primarily at start as a starter this one here, and the reason for that is because we try to use the concept of OOP, which means I hope you read this online, object-oriented programming. And object-oriented programming means you are working more with classes than with functions, because if you create, for example, just a header file or a CPP file with functions, then you don't need an object. You can use them later directly in your code. But if you make a class header file, you will create an object. And let me show you what I mean with this one. So, first of all, I hope you realized, yes, if the class get big like this one here, then I hope I don't delete it in the wrong place now. Should be here. Then we need header files and we will learn them. Don't worry, we will learn them. Now I made a problem here. What I made here? Variables. Yeah, variables. What is that? I copied this one on top. Okay. So we need this header files and CPP files. And like I said, this header files and CPP files must be not classes, but when we want to use object-oriented programming, that means we want to use classes. But let me demonstrate what happens if I don't want a class. For example, I already created a CPP file for a not class. For example, here I have created here something called function CPP. And this function CPP has also a header, which is, where is that? Here, function H. And this function H has just a forward declaration. Like I said, in this header file, we will put in more declaration. In this case, we have just one forward declaration. And what all the other things are, we will talk this when we talk about header files and so on. And in the one CPP file, I have just the definition of this body. And now in my project here, where I declared my my classes and all things what I put in, I can use this files here, this header files, which are not classes, when I include this header file here. And what include means, we will talk this more in detail, but I have include this one here in my file, in my work file, include, and then here this function H I have created. And this include looks a little bit different. Here we have here this angel brackets. I have here this function.h file, and now I can just use this function here, and this function is really doing, here's the forward declaration. I need the definition to check it. It is, when I call it, it is just printing out hello. And I have included here, I go down to my simulation from my last video. I simulated that I turn off and on the light, and later I say, okay, now I call my function which I have included, which is print hello. Let's call this one here. And so I can just call it so. And you can see this one is working. And the question is now why I show you this one. Because I show you this one, we will not use as a starter this kind of function headers here. We will not use them at start point. And the reason for that is we want to learn this class-based functions, what I showed you there, which means I'm going to delete these functions now because I can delete them later. We will use, oh, now I have kicked out my project. Okay, this one here. We will use this class here headers later. And that means, so what is the real difference about this class headers and this function headers? Let me show you this one more time here in our main. The real difference is this class headers. We can do something like this one. We have to create an object. And like you said, this function here, where I have just added it to my project, I could just call it without an object. So that's sort of the main difference. And why the next thing is why we are interested more in classes than in functions. The reason for that is we want also understand this Std library. This is the standard library, and for example string have we, and I said this is just my name. Let's call this one, and you know, coder, let's make this one. And this here, you can see the standard library has many classes, I said, and when we check this string here, it is a class, and it is similar like us, and you can see a class is creating a variable name. And if you are using function libraries, headers and so on, you are not really creating them. And yeah, there are many reasons to talk why so and why not, but to make it short, as a starter, we won't learn it with classes. It makes all the coding stuff easier. Why it makes it easier? Because when we talk about a class, and I think I talked about this a little bit, when we talk about a class, we put in a class all related functionalities and variables. So what I mean with that, all related, in a class you expect something like a lamp name, for example. So the name for the lamp, a voltage, a lamp has a voltage. For example, yeah, if you have here a pet class, a pet will have probably not a voltage a variable. So you are not associating things with other classes. And that's a problem with this function headers, because you actually don't know. You can put in a function header whatever you want, which is not even related to each other. Normally you would still relate the functions to each other, but that's the problem in general. In a class, you automatically, when you think about a lamp, okay, what you automatically associate with a lamp specific things. When you think about a switch, then you automatically associate with a switch special things. And these special properties, functionalities, you should normally put in this switch class, and it makes our programming very easy, because I expect that the switch has, yes, some of these properties and some of that. A lamp, I can the lamp can be turned on off, so I can see the light, something like that. And then you can have here different other classes. For example, you have here a class car. Okay, with a car, I think I need a car license to drive it, or the car has an engine and has 4 wheels perhaps, and something like that. So the real reason is classes makes, let's say, can provide an easy thinking for programmers. But very important, C++ is not purely OOP, which means object-oriented programming. You can, of course, avoid classes and still simulate functionality. This kind of stuff here on the bottom, what I simulated with classes, I could simulate it also without creating any class here. It's even easy possible as well. Just keep this in mind. And with that said, I think I stop here. And the only thing what you should know is this is a big problem, and we can't we will not do this in future. We will not put function classes, for example, in the same place like this one. And yeah, that was also the introduction for this header files and CPP files, and which we are not going to do now. Right now we have to finish classes. Classes are big, but I will try to make them very, very small, like this one here, and explain just the functionalities. And later when we start to go exercises, then we have to learn first this header files and CPP files, and then we make exercises, because you should train the, let's say, the normal use case of classes, which is you have a CPP file, you have a header file. And the reason for all that is, in this video you should just understand the only reason why we have these CPP files and header files is not because of the compiler. Like I said, the compiler is that I don't care. For me, it's all the same as long as the syntax is right. I will compile, and I don't need scroll up and down. I'm very fast. This is only the programmer has a problem here, which is us. We have a problem, and that's why this is a practical problem, and that's why we have this different kind of files, which is necessarily, even in theory, no, but in practical, yes, we can't really work later efficient. Would be just waste of time. So I think I talked much and I wanted to make it not only short, but it's a very important topic for the future. And then we will continue now, but in the next video we continue with classes because there are more things to talk. And it will get bigger, but I will try just to concentrate on functionalities, so not to create here 1,000 variables and declarations. So don't worry that I scroll all time up and down. And yeah, with that said, if you have any questions or any complaints like all time, write it in the comments. And yeah, don't give up. It will get more and more interesting. Don't worry, even if it gets a little bit more difficult, it will become at the same time also easier, because when you get used to it, then it will be really nice. So see you next. Bye. Good luck.